Hi everybody, welcome to today's class. My name is Ryan. I'm the executive chef in the Nashville City Club. The topic of today's class is something that's very important to me. It's meal prep. It's how I feed myself throughout the week. We're all very busy in life, even when things are kind of normal. Like we're all very busy with our jobs, very busy with our family. And a lot of times you don't find the time to cook like a very nutritious meal. A lot of times we'll drift towards things that are pre-packaged or maybe takeout that are definitely less healthy options, but also just easier to execute. Well, I'm going to teach you how to take very healthy food, food that's also inexpensive, and teach you how to prepare it all and put it all together into a meal that you can portion out and just reheat as the week goes on. So you could really, if you wanted to, you could cook like maybe 2 nights a week, and then you'd have like 5 or 6 portions of 2 different meals that you can just eat throughout the week. Now, if you do want to sit down and have a more traditional dinner, on a plate with like a steak or like a potato and a vegetable, kind of just all on a plate like that, you can definitely do that. But what I'm going to show you here today, you can do that to kind of, you can use it as lunch, you can use it as dinner, you can supplement anytime you don't feel like cooking. So you can kind of do it either way. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go through all the vegetables that we're using here, tell you the benefits of it, why I'm using it, then I'm going to start cooking. So basically I'm going to go over all the different kind of vegetables here that I'm using, tell you why I'm using them, and then kind of show you how to cut them. And then when we get over to the stove, I'm going to show you when to add them all, at what time, when to throw in the protein, and then we're going to mix it all together, and then you'll see the finished product. And hopefully you'll find this as satisfying, as delicious as I do. So we're going to start with the first ingredient that's going to go into the pan, which is baby bok choy. I have some prepped already here, but I left one whole so you guys can see how I prep it and kind of see what it looks like in the store, in case you got to go and look for it. So baby bok choy is, as you would guess, just a smaller version of regular bok choy. You see the leaves here haven't really had time to go white yet like you see in the store. I prefer baby bok choy over regular bok choy because I find them to be more tender. It cooks up a little bit faster. And that's the texture I prefer when I'm eating meals like this. Bok choy is very important in anyone's diet because it's rich in antioxidants. It also has a lot of vitamin C, vitamin K, vitamin A, and it also has a lot of beta carotene, which is your body processes that as vitamin A, and it acts as kind of like it acts kind of as like boosting your immune system, which is very important nowadays. You'll see as we go through a lot of these kind of vegetables, that's a common thing, is they all have beta carotene and antioxidants, which aid you in staying healthy. The way I figure it is if like you build yourself a good baseline of health, like you're more equipped to fight off like colds or anything like high blood pressure or things like that that might be plaguing people that you know or yourself in your daily life. So if you keep a diet like this, mainly like this is how you feed yourself, you're going to be more equipped for health and just general wellness. So with the bok choy, we're going to take a bulb here, and you can see like when you get it, it's going to be kind of like in a bulb form. I already cut off the ends and washed it. You always want to make sure you wash your greens when you take them from the grocery store. I already cut off the ends there and washed them already in the interest of time. But what you can do with the bok choy is you just take kind of the leaves right there, stack them on top of each other. Take your knife, always use a very sharp knife when you're doing this, and just kind of cut them in kind of like thin little slices. Knife work when you're making food like this isn't very important. It doesn't have to look fancy, it doesn't have to look super great. Just try to keep everything as thin as you can so it cooks uniformly, and it also cooks quicker because the thicker the vegetables you have, the longer they're going to take to cook, and then so that adds time to your cooking. So we're just going to go through these bok choy leaves very quickly. There's a little bit of the stalk left on that one. I'm going to cut that off and pitch that. So we're just going to run our knife through here very quick. Again, we're not worried about being too pretty or anything like that. We're just kind of cutting them functionally. So this serves a purpose in our dish well. And for any of you that have been to our cooking classes before, always kind of keep your hand like this when you're working with a knife. Don't leave your fingers sitting out like that, because that you're prone to slip. Sometimes when you're working with a knife and you don't want to get your finger. So I always kind of cut with a claw, as I was taught. So now we're through our bok choy. So we're just going to put it in here, keep it to the side. And this looks like a lot of bok choy, and it is. This was 2 bunches that I bought from the store. But as you'll see, when you cook it down, it's gonna shrink a lot in the pan. It's really not gonna take up that much room in your dish. Next, I'm gonna go over the Swiss chard. Swiss chard is a leafy green. As many of you might know, leafy greens are very nutritious, very, very healthy. Things like kale and spinach and collard greens, mustard greens, stuff like that. They're all very nutrient dense. What we have here is Swiss chard. I prefer Swiss chard over the other ones because it has like a much more milder flavor, and the leaf is very tender compared to the other ones. So it cooks up a lot quicker. And actually, Swiss chard is considered a superfood. It's considered one of the 14 healthiest vegetables that you can eat. The benefits of eating Swiss chard is it has magnesium, has a lot of antioxidants as well. It also has vitamin C and A and vitamin K, just very high levels of all that. So if you're able to incorporate this in your diet, it's really going to go a long way towards keeping you healthy. And so these are pre-washed also. And what you're going to do, as you saw with the other one, you're going to kind of grab it by the stem, and you're going to just tear it off. If it breaks on you, that's fine. But what you're really going to want to do is kind of take away the middle stem, okay? All the little stems that run throughout the rest of the leaves are fine. It's not really they're going to cook down quick. You want to get rid of that fibrous, thick stem in the middle. And then instead of cutting these, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take these and kind of tear them into bite-sized pieces. You could also if you wanted to, you could also kind of roll them up together in a cooking technique called the chiffonade, where you kind of roll them into a cigar shape, and then take your knife and then kind of run it through into small little ribbons. That is another option for this thing. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to tear it, because I prefer the bigger chunks in a meal like this myself. But either way you want to do it is okay. So after all that's tore up, the next thing we're going to incorporate in this dish, excuse me while I lap off my cutting board real quick. Next thing we're going to incorporate in this dish is heirloom carrots. Carrots are also a very, very healthy vegetable. They are very rich in beta-carotene. And beta-carotene is what gives vegetables like carrots and fruit like oranges. It gives it that orange color. Beta-carotene, like I said, your body processes that as vitamin A. Very, very healthy. Carrots are also a good source of antioxidants as well. So I'm using heirloom carrots here. Heirloom carrots are just different colors. They don't really have a different in taste. I just prefer to use heirloom carrots because it adds a lot of brightness to the dish, a lot of visual aspects that are appetizing to me. So to prep these things up, we're just going to take a peeler. I'm sure all of you have done this before. I'm going to run through it quickly. I always find it helpful to keep the tip of my carrot down on the cutting board and kind of rotate it along as I'm peeling. If you keep it up like that, you can peel it like that, but I just think it's quicker. Just have the tip grounded on the board. Just kind of shave through it. Now we're going to get rid of our skins. Also, I don't like peeling carrots over a trash can. I've seen a lot of people do that. But one surefire thing that's bound to happen when you do that is you're going to drive your carrot and it's in the trash can. So I would definitely do it overboard as opposed to over the floor or over the trash can. Then we're going to take our knife here. I'm going to keep both these together. If you're not comfortable doing that, you can just do one. But you want to keep it again on the thin side as thin as you can, using the claw technique with your hand. Just kind of cut them into little discs. If you're uncomfortable cutting them this way, because there is a possibility that the carrot could roll on you. So if you're not really comfortable with the knife, what you can do is you can take it and kind of cut it in half, okay? And then you can work your knife through like that. It's not going to slide on you. It isn't as apt to slide on you, that is. And it's definitely not going to roll because of the flattened edge. And you can just kind of cut it like that. So we're going to cut through these carrots real quick. And as I'm explaining these vegetables, you're going to see the theme kind of brings itself that there's a lot of antioxidants in these things, which, as I covered before, very, very important for supporting your immune system, especially at a time like we're facing right now. I think it's very, very important to kind of try to keep your immune system, your immune health high if you can. Just in general life, though. It's good to wake up in the morning and feel better, and this kind of diet really promotes that kind of thing. It's very, very healthy as well. It has a lot of antioxidants. And it also has a lot of Also has a lot of fiber and phosphate in it as well. Very, very healthy for you. So we're going to do the same thing we do with the asparagus as we do with the carrots. We're just going to kind of lay them on the board here. We're just going to cut them into small little dishes. I think in this dish I added maybe seven stalks of asparagus, so it's well short of a bunch. But asparagus can be used in you buy it at the store in a bunch, but it can be used in so many different applications. Like asparagus and eggs is very, very good. You can put it in a pasta, you can put it in all sorts of dishes like this. So don't be afraid to buy the bunch because it's very good for you and also very tasty as long as you don't overcook it. That's why I think a lot of people say they don't like things like asparagus or other kind of vegetables because maybe when they had it prepared when they were younger, maybe they were overcooked and they were slimy or soggy or something like that. So don't be afraid to go back and retry vegetables, and just kind of prepare them the right way. Don't overcook them, kind of leave them crisp so the full flavor comes out. So I'll put about 7 stalks of asparagus in here. I took a whole bunch of heirloom carrots, so I forgot to cover that earlier. And then a whole bunch of Swiss chard, and then about 2 bulbs, as I mentioned, of the Bok Choy. The last thing that's going in this dish is banana peppers. Banana peppers I like a lot because they have a lot of flavor in them, and they're also not too spicy. Sometimes, depending on when they were picked, they can have a little bit of heat to them. Like the older pepper gets, the less spice that it has in it. So, if it was picked young, it might be a little bit on the spicy side, but it's never going to be too hot. It's very, very, very accessible heat. So what you want to do with this banana pepper here is just cut off the top as I did. Then you're going to cut in half down the middle. Okay? And then you're going to, you can use your fingers if you want, or you can use a spoon. I'll show you both methods. But if you're going to use your fingers, just kind of tear out the middle of it. Kind of throw it away. I give a good bump on the bottom to knock down any seeds that are left in there. You can also use a spoon to scrape it out if you want. Just get the spoon blade underneath there. Just kind of glide it down. Kind of separate the membrane from the inside of the pepper. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to give the bottom a little knock out all the seeds. If you are using your bare hands, as with any peppers, except with bell peppers, it tends not to matter as much. You want to make sure you wash your hands after you handle a pepper, because the oils will get on your skin, and if anyone's ever done this before, you know what I'm talking about. You might rub your eyes or things like that, then all of a sudden you get a burn, and you definitely kind of want to avoid that. So definitely wash your hands after you handle a raw pepper. That has any spice to it at all. And we're going to cut each half into quarters, like that. Then we're just going to line them all up, and we're going to run down the pepper with our knife. Just cut it in little dices. Okay, so I'm going to put these in here. And we're pretty much ready to cook, so we're going to move on over the stove. We're over at the stove, and we're going to go over how to cook these vegetables in what order you should put them in for maximized texture and flavor. But first, I just wanted to say the vegetables that I've chosen for this are things that I not only find healthy, but I also find delicious. So if there are certain things that I'm using that you don't care for, that's fine. You can really substitute any vegetables that you like. You just want to, when you're cooking, you just want to keep in mind how dense the vegetable is and how long it takes to cook. So if you're taking something like broccoli, those florets are going to take a little bit more to cook, so you're going to want to put them in earlier and kind of cook them to the begin to soften, and then add other things, depending again on the texture and the delicateness of the vegetable. So really, what I'm doing here, you don't have to mimic it. You can kind of choose whatever kind of vegetables you want. I'm going to go into the meat that I'm using in a second, as well as a grain that we're also going to mix with all these really nice, beautiful fresh vegetables. We're going to cover that more towards the end of the video. But first, we're going to start by cooking. So I got a pan on the stovetop. It's a very big pan. When you're doing something like this, when you're working with a decent volume of ingredients here, that's going to be enough to give you all the portions that you're going to want out of this. You want to kind of choose the kind of bigger saute pan that you have. That way you can kind of throw everything in stages. You can keep everything in one pan. It's very, very convenient, very easy. If you don't have a pan, a large one, you can still make stuff like this. You just might have to throw in 2 ingredients at a time, cook them until they're done, and then take them out, and then move on to the next ingredient. But if you do have a bigger pan, I prefer doing it this way because all the flavors really have a chance to develop and kind of meld with each other. So the finished product is a little bit better, I think. So what we're going to do to start out, we're going to take about 2 tablespoons of butter. We're going to throw it in this pan. The pan had a little chance to get hot on the stove, which is very important. See, the butter's starting to sizzle kind of hard, So I'm just going to back the heat off just a little bit because you don't want to burn your butter. You know, brown butter is good, but burnt butter is not. But I'm not trying to brown this application either. So about maybe a little over 2 tablespoons of butter in there, like I mentioned. That's not really a lot to use for this recipe. One, because dairy fat like butter and stuff like that, in moderate volumes, responsible volumes, is not unhealthy at all. In fact, it's very healthy. It's very healthy for brain function and things like that. But also, if you figure if this thing is going to make about like 6 portions, say, like it will, a couple tablespoons of butter running across those 6 portions really isn't too much at all. So now that the butter is nice and melted, it's starting to foam a little bit, so we got to get heat on there. We're first going to throw in our Bok Choy. When you hear that sizzle when you put something in the pan, that's what you want to hear. You want to hear that sizzle. That means the pan's nice and hot. If you throw cold ingredients into a cold pan, many of you have been to our class before. I've heard me say this a million times. You're just going to sweat it instead of like actually sauteing it down. And that's the goal, is to saute. It's not just to like kind of sweat it out. Also, when I saute, I tend to like toss the pan around like that. You obviously don't have to worry about doing that at home. You can easily just take a spoon like this. As a matter of fact, I think I'll cook the rest of this with the spoon. Just kind of stir it around a little bit. And every time you throw something in the pan, what you're going to want to do is add some salt. So I'm going to throw a little pinch of salt in there. This helps kind of build flavors on the dish throughout the cooking. And you can always adjust salt at the end, to add more in for better taste. So don't be afraid to do that. Just kind of add a little bit, don't add too much. Every time you put something in, just add a little bit. So these carrots have been going for about 2 to 3 minutes. And we are about ready to throw in the next ingredient. The next, I'm going to add in the protein that we're using here. I bought from Whole Foods, it's where I do most of my shopping. I bought a maple sage pork sausage that's ground. There's quite a few flavor elements in there that are going to be really nice and complement things well. So we're going to take about a pound of that. We're just going to place it in there. And then again, if you're doing this bare hand, be sure to wash your hands after you handle the raw meat if you touch anything else. Me, I'm wearing gloves, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to change out my gloves. I've changed my gloves and I've started to break up this sausage here with my spoon, kind of mix it in with the vegetables. And that really is one of the beauties of this when you're cooking things like this, is you don't need more than like one or two pans, most ever. Depending on what kind of starch you're using, we're going to go over the starch we're using for this dish in a second here. But you're going to need a pot to cook that in because you boil a lot of grains in water or pasta, whichever you're doing. But everything else can be done in this one pan. Cleanup's a lot easier doing it this way. And also, like I said, the flavors kind of have a chance to mingle, get to know each other. So we're going to continue to chop the sausage up a little bit as we're stirring it. And as you see, the sausage is starting to cook. You can still have some raw spots in, that's fine, because we still have a way to go before this is done. But as you get the sausage broken down a little bit, kind of stir it throughout your dish. I've already added salt and pepper to it as well. Okay. And already, to me, that's starting to look very, 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 very delicious. So next we're going to add the Swiss chard in. The Swiss chard, like I said, is a very delicate green. It's going to cook down pretty quickly, you'll see. So we're just going to dump in that whole bunch of Swiss chard. And add a little bit of salt and pepper again. And then very carefully, because this green is still raw, so it has a high chance of spilling out of your pan. So very carefully, we're going to go through here, and we're just going to lightly kind of stir it up, bring it together. As the hot meat and vegetables get on top of the greens here, it's going to start kind of wilting them down. And since Swiss chard is a much more delicate green, as opposed to something like the collard green or something like that, it cooks in like a fraction of the time. I would even say it kind of wilts up faster than kale does, although kale doesn't take that long either. But I prefer Swiss chard over kale. Kale's very good, just taste-wise and texture. I just kind of go for Swiss chard. Although I do also use kale, so if you do, you're not wrong there. Hey, we're back at the prep table here where we were doing our vegetables, and now we're just going to mix all this together and portion it out, get ready for the week. The grain I chose to do for this dish is barley. Now, barley I find to have a very kind of slightly nutty texture, chewy. It's a nice contrast to everything else that's going to be in the dish. But you can use other kind of grains too. You can use quinoa. You can use wheat berry. You could even use pasta. I even make dishes sometimes like this with eggs. Like bok choy goes very well in scrambled eggs, in case you didn't know. Mix some meat in there, some asparagus too. That's a great egg dish. But today we're using bok choy. Bok choy is something that's been cultivated by humans for about 10,000 years. It started being cultivated in Ethiopia and Southeast Asia. And it has a lot of nutritious qualities. It's very high in fiber. It's very high in some minerals as well. It's also a good tool to regulate blood pressure. It has a very low glycemic index. So if you're looking for something that's going to fill you up, that's not like bread or something like that, which isn't good for people with diabetes to eat, you can cook up some barley. It has a very low glycemic index and fill you up and have very low impact on your blood sugar. People also say this lowers your risk of heart disease and all that other kind of stuff. So again, in theme with everything else that we're doing, it's a tasty ingredient and it's also very, very healthy. Before I cook this is about a half a pound of barley. As you can see, it kind of cooks up a lot, after you get done cooking it. And we cooked it just like you cook pasta. Just a pan of boiling water that's salted. Add your barley in there, and if you use like a slotted spoon like this, you can kind of just fish a piece or two out every now and then and kind of taste test it. What you're going to do, you don't want it to be like chalky. You don't want it to kind of sound crunchy. You just kind of want a little bit of an al dente chew to it when it's done. So it's a very, very satisfying mouthfeel if you've never had this before. So what we're going to do first is we're going to take our mixing bowl here, a decent sized mixing bowl because we have quite a bit of food here. We're going to spoon in our barley. And then we're going to take our ingredients that we were cooking over in the stove that's already cooled a little bit. Again, you want to pay attention if the handle's too hot. Obviously, use a towel or an oven mitt, but this isn't. It's cooled down quite a bit. So after we got that in there, we're just going to simply stir and combine everything. Just stir it thoroughly so everything gets mixed up evenly. Now we added a good amount of salt into the dish as we were kind of cooking the meat, the vegetables, and stuff like that. But we still, before we start portioning this out, we want to give it a taste to make sure that the seasoning is adjusted correctly. And since this is for me, I'm not going to worry about putting a spoon in there and double dipping or anything like that. So I'm just going to put some in there. Okay. I can see since the barley wasn't salted, it needs a little more salt. So I'm pour that in there. This is very, very good. You really get the spice of the banana pepper. You get the herb flavor of the sage and the sausage. It's got the chew from the barley. Very, very, very good. So, after you got it mixed up like this, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll just make myself a portion and then I'll eat it for dinner. And then while I'm eating, this cools on the counter and then it's cool enough for me to portion and start to put away. But if you're not going to eat it, you can certainly portion it right away, or you can let it cool on the counter as well, come back to it later. But we're just going to go ahead and start portioning this up. So we have deli containers that are about a pint size, I believe. You can also use a regular Tupperware to portion this up. Now I'm not going to fill this up quite all the way because it ends up being quite a big portion when you do that. Especially if you're thinking about eating this for lunch. You might want to fill it up maybe 2/3, a little over halfway. So we finished portioning this out, and it ended up being 6 portions, in part because I didn't eat a portion for a meal right away. So if we did, let's say there'd be 5 or something like that. And that's what I was trying to explain earlier, is that if you do this like 2 nights a week, then you all of a sudden you have like, I don't know, between 10 and 12 portions of ready-to-eat meals. You can eat up anytime you want for lunch or for dinner. And it's healthy, it's very nutritious, and very, very easy. I always prefer to reheat these things on the stove with a pat of butter, but you can also put it in the microwave if you like and just kind of dump it in the bowl. And depending on what you're preparing, you know, you can do things kind of change the flavor a little bit. You can add a little bit of shredded cheese to the top after you get it in the bowl. You can add a little bit of hot sauce if you like. One thing I like doing a lot is I like frying an egg, having a nice kind of soft egg, and put that on top of my food. And so when you stir into it, the egg yolk kind of breaks up and kind of intermingles throughout the dish, and it gives it a different kind of flavor even still. And after these things are nice and cool, then you can go and put the tops on, and then prepare them for refrigeration. You can also, most of the stuff you can also freeze. Also keep that in mind. So if you're not gonna kind of get too mild within a week, which you kind of should eat all this kind of stuff after you cook it, you want to try to eat it within a week. You know, just make sure you're being completely safe with what you're eating and stuff like that. So if you're not gonna do that in that time frame, you can easily freeze it and thaw it out. Maybe we wouldn't do that with scrambled eggs or anything like that, or even some kind of pastas. But with grains, that's perfect for freezing stuff like that. It's gonna turn out great. So that's it. I hope you learned things here today. I hope you are willing to try this at home. And be sure to like and subscribe our channel. Thank you very much. And we're always here for you at the club. So if there's any time you don't want to meal prep or cook for yourself, go ahead and give us a call. We'd be more than happy to make some food for you. Thanks a lot.